So poor lifestyle choices tend to lead to things like heart disease and diabetes, sleep apnea. I think Ron might have mentioned something about that. Also, not to mention that the more weight we put on, the more stress it puts on our back, the more stress it puts on your knees and your ankles, making it just very difficult to be mobile. So little by little, as poor lifestyle choices affect your health, it really affects you in many, many different ways. So let's talk more specifically about diabetes. So some of you in the room might have diabetes. In the years when I was doing just nutrition, this is probably one of the top diseases that I dealt with. So you probably are aware that diabetes is a condition where you have too much sugar in your bloodstream, also known as glucose. And now we need some glucose in our bloodstream, we just don't need too much of it. And so as the sugars build up, and you see those kind of increasing in the blood, in the artery, so as the blood sugar builds up, it sets off a chain reaction, which then tends to affect that lining of your artery. And so here is come up in a second. There we go. So here is a close-up of the lining of the artery that's becoming damaged. So again, as that sugar builds up, again, it's a chain reaction. It's a little difficult to explain, but it'll begin to damage the artery wall. So over here under the damaged side, you can see how you've got clogging going on. And notice how the area for the blood to flow through is getting smaller and smaller. This is actually a good example of what happens in a heart attack. So as the blood flow gets smaller, and if that clogged part, you can see hopefully right over here, that plaque can actually break off and cause a clot in the artery. And when this happens in the heart, yeah. There we go. So when this happens in the heart, you see the arteries, the red arteries going around the heart. If you have a piece of plaque that comes off and gets blocked, it causes that part of the heart to die off. And so that's when someone gets the chest pain, maybe even some of the other common symptoms of a heart attack, like profuse sweating, for example. And this kind of thing, oftentimes, you might not have a warning for that. You could be driving along like that driver, and I don't know what his health condition was, but you could be driving along and suddenly that piece of plaque comes out of breaks off in the artery and glows down and causes a blockage. And so that's when a heart attack occurs. And depending on where that happens, it can be fatal. And so unfortunately, we hear a lot about those. Those are not the guys we saw and the women that we saw in cardiac rehab. We fortunately saw the survivors. And keep in mind too that our blood flow is what nourishes every tissue in our body. So not only does the blood, of course, nourish the heart muscle and keep that working properly, but another, if you want to go ahead and thank you, but another that our blood nourishes are the nerves all around our body. So the yellow that you see, that's representative of nerves, and then you see the arteries actually that are around the nerve. So that's feeding blood to the nerves to keep those working properly. And as with diabetes, again, as the chain reaction goes off that damages the lining to your arteries, eventually what happens is the nerve is not getting its blood supply and it's not getting the nourishment that it needs. And so as your nerves begin to deteriorate, it's going to affect different parts of your body, like your hands, you can go ahead, like your hands and your feet. You probably have heard of neuropathy, that's the title on the slide. But as your nerves deteriorate, in your feet you might feel numbness, tingling, pain, like a burning type of pain. And so those are common symptoms of neuropathy. So as drivers, your hands and your feet are some of the most important parts of your body. And so if your feet are being affected by neuropathy, that will also affect your ability to drive. Another that I don't have on this specific slide, but another effect is your eyes. So as blood sugars increase, that sugar actually tends to attach onto the arteries that feed your eyes. And so blurred vision is something that you can experience from diabetes as well. Fortunately, that can be preventable. As your blood sugars come down and come out of those capillaries that are in the eyes, then your vision comes back. However, if time after time after time, your blood sugars are higher, they're high and then you finally bring them down, but then they're back up to being high again. If you don't get them down and keep them down, that will become permanent damage for your eyes. So 3 things that drivers really need are their eyes, their hands, and their feet. And those are 3 areas of the body that diabetes has a significant negative impact on. So keeping blood sugars under good control is a great way to keep the most important parts of your body working properly and being able to drive safely.